I was disowned for being a dumb plumber. My family said I'd never make it. Then I bought my first house, and when they called me desperate for help, I couldn't stop smiling. My name's Luke, and apparently, my great rebellion against the universe was not wanting to wear a tie to work. Sounds ridiculous, right? But that's honestly where everything began. I was 17 when I told my parents I was applying to trade school. My mom blinked at me like I'd just announced I was running off to join the circus. My dad slowly folded his newspaper, looked at me for a second, and said, "So you're throwing your life away. Good to know." To them, plumbing wasn't a career, it was a cautionary tale. A job for the kids who barely scraped by in school, the kind of people who didn't mind dirt under their fingernails. My sister, Haley, the family golden child, made sure to remind me of that one Thanksgiving while I was literally fixing the garbage disposal mid-dinner. Haley was off studying media something or other in New York, which I'm convinced is just fancy talk for scrolling through TikTok professionally. She got care packages with little notes from mom and Starbucks cards tucked between her textbooks like love letters. Me? I got told to start paying rent since I was apparently too good for a real degree. So I did. I paid rent. I cleaned gutters. I fixed the dishwasher when it clogged. I replaced the water heater one freezing night without asking for a dime. And still, whenever I mentioned school, Mom would sigh like I was sucking the air out of the room, and Dad would just shake his head. "You'll be nothing but a wrench boy," he muttered once as I studied pipe fittings at the kitchen table. I got tired of it. Tired of pretending I wasn't proud of what I was learning, tired of walking on eggshells like plumbing was some shameful secret. So I stopped hiding it. I leaned in. By 19, I had my license. At 20, I was working under a master plumber and making more money than most of my old classmates, including the so-called gifted ones. But family's funny like that. They don't notice success unless it fits their definition. Mine didn't. Not even when I fixed our elderly neighbor's busted toilet, and the guy slipped me a $300 tip and a bag of homemade cookies. Mom took the cookies, thanked him sweetly, and then turned to me to ask if I was ever going back to real school. Real school? I could have screamed. Instead, I started saving, hustling, learning everything I could. I worked nights and weekends, took on double shifts, even helped a buddy remodel his rental house just to pick up drywall and flooring skills. My goal wasn't to prove them wrong, not at first. I just wanted out. At 23, I made an offer on a small 2-bedroom fixer-upper on the edge of town. The porch leaned to one side. The basement smelled like regret, and the backyard had a bathtub half buried in weeds. But it was mine. I didn't tell my parents. Not a word. After years of being ignored, judged, and dismissed, I didn't need their congratulations. I just needed silence. And for 6 months, I had it. Peace. Work. Freedom. I even adopted a dog, Rusty, a scruffy mutt with one floppy ear and an irrational fear of thunder. But peace doesn't last forever. It ended with a phone call, from Mom, of all people. That alone was suspicious. We hadn't spoken in half a year. Not even a birthday text. I figured she meant it when she said, "Don't come around until you're ready to be serious." I was about to ignore the call, but curiosity won. I answered. Her voice was sharp and panicked. "Luke, something's wrong with the house. There's water everywhere. Your father tried to fix it, and now it's spraying." I could hear Dad yelling in the background, then a splash. "Wait," I said. "Why are you calling me?" There was silence. Then she said, dead serious, "Because the plumber we called is booked for 2 weeks. And we figured, you still fix toilets, right?" I stared at my phone like it had insulted me. "You still fix toilets, right?" That's what she said. Like I was some stray they suddenly remembered could fetch a ball. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I still fix toilets. Professionally, actually." She didn't laugh. Too busy panicking. "Luke, please. It's flooding. Your dad made it worse. There's water pouring through the ceiling. He says it's the city's fault, but the neighbor thinks it's a cracked flange or something." I blinked. "You learned the word flange?" We Googled it. I had 2 choices. Hang up and let them drown in pride and plumbing, or be the bigger man. I went with option 3, sarcasm. Maybe ask Haley's boyfriend. He's a business major, right? Maybe he can negotiate with the toilet. "Lucas." Full name. She was serious. "You're our last option." I should have felt vindicated. After years of being mocked for choosing pipes over papers, now they needed me. I should have gloated. But instead, I laughed. "I'll be there in an hour." When I pulled into the driveway, It felt like walking onto the set of a bad sitcom, where everyone secretly despises the main character. The house looked the same, except for the river of soaked towels spilling out the front door. I stepped inside and was hit by the smell of mildew, panic, and ego. Dad stood barefoot in the hallway, holding a wrench upside down like it had betrayed him. His pants were drenched up to the knees. "Luke?" he said, uncertain whether to thank me or blame me for existing. "Well," I said, nodding. "Really going for that open concept look, huh?" He didn't respond. I stepped over a pile of dripping mop heads into the bathroom and nearly slipped. It was chaos, water everywhere, tile slick, carpet ruined, ceiling dripping into the vent below. They hovered behind me like tourists watching a mechanic work. "You tried turning the valve clockwise?" I asked. Dad nodded like he knew what that meant. I reached down, twisted it the right way, and the geyser stopped instantly. Silence. Just the sound of my mom's shaky exhale and Dad muttering something that definitely wasn't "thank you." "Cracked flange," I said, tapping the toilet base. "Probably been loose for months." "You never noticed the wobble?" Dad scoffed. "Toilets wobble all the time. Doesn't mean they're broken." "That's a solid quote," I said. "Might stitch it on a pillow." I spent the next hour pulling the toilet, scraping off old wax, disinfecting, and replacing everything. I had all the right parts, because unlike Dad, I was actually handy. While I worked, they just stood there, quiet, watching. And it hit me. This was the first time they'd ever actually seen me work. Not just the end result, but the process. The tools, the gloves, the focus. I wasn't just a plumber in their heads anymore. I was their plumber. And they hated that. Halfway through fixing the mess, Haley decided to FaceTime, probably hoping to witness the chaos firsthand. Instead, she got a front row seat to me calmly resealing the toilet base with fresh caulk. "Wait, Luke's fixing it?" she asked, hair wrapped in a towel. "Didn't you guys, cut him off or something?" Mom didn't answer. I just grinned at the camera and gave her a peace sign. "Hey, Hales, toilet's still leaking up at NYU. Or did your crypto prince finally pay rent?" She hung up immediately. I couldn't help but laugh. When I finally finished, the place was dry again. I packed up my tools, tossed out the mountain of soaked towels that proved their incompetence, and stood by the door. "Don't worry," I said as I zipped up my jacket. "I won't charge you." Dad blinked. "You won't?" "Nah," I said. "But next time, there's a travel fee and emotional damages." Then I walked out. And as I made my way to the truck, I could have sworn I heard Mom whisper, almost in disbelief, "He really knows what he's doing." Like it was news to her. After leaving their house, reeking of bleach and bruised pride, I didn't drive straight home. I pulled into the parking lot of a little cafe I'd helped remodel a couple months back, replaced every sink, rerouted the drainage, even fixed the espresso machine's mystery leak that had stumped everyone else. The owner, Maria, gives me free lattes now, no questions asked. So that day, I just sat there, damp hoodie sticking to my shoulders, hands wrapped around a warm mug, wondering, why did I even help them? Why didn't I just let them drown in their own arrogance? Maybe because no matter how old you get, there's still a part of you that craves to hear your parents say, "We're proud of you." Spoiler alert, mine never did. Not when I passed my journeyman exam. Not when I launched my own plumbing business at 24. Not even when I bought my own house. The one they didn't know about, with the 2-car garage, the shiny red toolbox, and the magnet on the breaker box that reads L. Harlan Plumbing and Repair. My quiet badge of honor. They still saw me as the dropout who couldn't hack real college. Funny how that one decision haunted them way more than it ever haunted me. A week after the great toilet flood, I thought maybe they'd call, say thanks, ask how I learned all that. Maybe even apologize for years of calling me the family handyman. But nothing. Radio silence. Then one morning, I got a Facebook notification. Haley had posted a throwback Thursday photo, her and Dad at her graduation. The caption? "Miss being back in the city with people who value education." The comments were full of church friends and distant cousins gushing about her drive and ambition. My name? Nowhere. Just another public reminder that I didn't fit their idea of success. I closed the app and got back to work. Because while Haley was building her brand through filtered selfies and hashtags, I was crawling through basements, patching drywall, and replacing corroded copper pipes. My rewards came in the form of cash payments, homemade pies, and thank you notes written in shaky cursive. Not glamorous, just real. About a month later, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Dad. For once, he didn't sound angry, just tired. Luke, it's your father. Look, I know things haven't been easy, but we've got another issue with the upstairs bathroom. Might be the pipes. Your mother said we should call a company, but I figured, if you're not too busy, maybe you could take a look. Maybe I could have, but I didn't want to. Because men like my dad don't say sorry. They just hand you a broken sink and hope it fixes everything else. I didn't delete the message, but I didn't call back either. Instead, I drove to Home Depot, bought new tile, and started renovating my guest bathroom. Because my house deserved the effort they never did. Then came the turning point. My old trade school buddy, Chuck, called out of the blue. Got a duplex, he said. Great bones. Awful plumbing. Want in? I didn't hesitate. We teamed up. I spent weekends in crawl spaces, evenings crunching numbers. By month 3, we'd turned the place into something beautiful, modern fixtures, clean lines, even rainfall shower heads. During the open house, a couple walked in asking for a tour. My parents. I nearly dropped my clipboard. They didn't recognize me right away. I was in a polo, clean, professional. But then Mom squinted, tilted her head. Luke, she said softly. I nodded. Dad looked like he'd swallowed a wrench. This is yours. Chuck grinned and clapped my shoulder. He designed the whole system. Plumbing's flawless. Honestly, best work I've seen. They just stood there, stunned. I thought you worked out of a truck, Dad said. I do, I replied. The truck just parks in front of properties I own now. Silence. Then Mom gave a nervous little laugh. Well, isn't that something? Yeah, it really was. They didn't stay long, didn't ask questions, but something shifted that day. For the first time, I wasn't the dropout or the disappointment. I was something they couldn't quite define. And that scared them. A few weeks later, the duplex sold in 3 days flat. I took my share, reinvested half into another fixer-upper, and used the rest to finally upgrade my truck. Nothing flashy, just clean, reliable mine. Got the logo redesigned, too. *L, Harlan Plumbing. *simple, crisp lettering. Subtle confidence. Life was good. My family still hadn't called, but that was fine. Until they did. It was 6:23 p.m. on a Thursday. I'd just finished replacing a sewer line behind an elementary school. I smelled like despair and wet clay. Rusty, my dog, was asleep in the passenger seat, head resting on an empty sandwich box. Then my phone buzzed. It was Haley. You have to understand, Haley doesn't call. She sends group texts filled with emojis and judgment. But that night, she called twice. Then left a voicemail. I hit play on speaker. Hey Luke, it's me. Look, Mom and Dad had this situation. I guess the upstairs bathroom's leaking into the guest room, and now there's water coming from the light fixtures. There was a pause on the voicemail, just long enough for me to hear her exhale. They tried calling a few companies, she said, but it's late, and no one's answering. We didn't know who else to call. She actually said it. We didn't know who else to call. Like I was the emergency contact on the family embarrassment list. I didn't reply. I just scrolled through my recent invoices, leaned back in the seat, and cracked open a cold, orange soda. I'd earned a minute of peace. At 8:02 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was my dad. Nearly spilled the soda when I saw his name. Another voicemail. Luke? Look, I know this is awkward, but we've got a real emergency here. The ceiling's leaking. We shut off the water, but it's still spreading. If there's any way you could come, we'd really appreciate it. Those last 4 words. We'd really appreciate it. I hadn't heard anything like them from him in my entire life. They sounded foreign, like he had to dig them up from a language he never used. So yeah, I showed up. Not because I owed them anything, but because I wanted to see them in full chaos while I stayed calm. No lectures. No jokes at my expense. Just me, the so-called wrench boy, finally walking in with all the power. And man, I wasn't disappointed. The place looked like it had survived 3 hurricanes and a toddler's birthday party. Buckets under vents, towels everywhere, that unmistakable scent of wet drywall filling the air. A smell every plumber knows the way you remember an ex you wish you'd never met. Mom opened the door, flushed and frazzled, hair tied back, slippers squishing with each step. Luke, she breathed. Thank you for coming. I nodded but didn't smile. Dad was crouched in the hallway, flashlight in hand, pretending to inspect the wall like he knew what he was looking for. "Watch your step," he muttered, like I was the amateur. I stepped past him and took one look around. The water stains told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't new. It had been festering for weeks. "Did you hear dripping before this?" I asked. Mom hesitated. "Well, there was a sound, but your father thought it was the neighbor's sprinkler." Dad grunted. "They water at night. Not through your ceiling." "They don't," I said. Then I got to work. No explanations this time. No running commentary. Just gloves on, flashlight up, tools out. Every so often, I'd hear them whispering behind me, like nervous spectators watching a magician fix their stupidity. Then came the moment that sealed it. "You still have access to the crawl space?" I asked. Dad sighed. "We blocked it off after the raccoon thing." "The raccoon thing?" "Not important. I found a panel, pried it open, and slid under the house. Within minutes, I spotted it. A slow leak in an old rusted line, worsened by a lazy patch job from whoever installed their new vanity a couple years back. They'd ignored it, and now it was bleeding up through the floorboards. Classic. After patching the pipe and replacing the soggy insulation, I climbed back out, tossed my gloves into a trash bag by the door, and said, "It's handled." Mom opened her mouth, probably ready to say thank you again, but Dad beat her to it. "How much?" I shrugged. "No charge." Their eyes widened. "But next time," I added, grabbing my tool bag, "call someone who doesn't know what they're doing, since those seem to be your favorite." And then I walked out. 3 days later, I got a text from Haley. Not a thank you, not an apology. Just, *, what kind of paint did you use in the bathroom? Mom liked it. *, no greeting. No punctuation. Just a casual reminder that I was still their on-call handyman. So I did what any sane man would do. I left her on read. Truth is, I wasn't mad anymore. I was done. Done decoding guilt hidden inside chore lists. Done being useful only when something was leaking. Instead, I went outside, sat on my rebuilt porch, and looked at my house with new eyes. It wasn't fancy, no white fence or granite countertops, but it was mine. Every inch of it. The stone steps? I laid them myself. The shed out back? Built with my own hands over 3 weekends. The living room wiring, the sockets, the plumbing, every part of it had my fingerprints. And every time I heard the floorboards creak or the faucet run smooth, it whispered, * you did this. * I wish I could say that pride was enough. But deep down, I still wanted them to see it. Not for revenge, just so they'd understand who I'd become. That moment came faster than I expected. Chuck and I were wrapping up another job, a kitchen remodel for a couple downsizing from a mansion to something cozier. We finished early, under budget, and they were thrilled. As we packed up, the wife mentioned a property across the street that had just hit the market. "Cute little house," she said. "Bit of water damage, though. Pipes are ancient. You'd love it, Luke." She was right. I drove by that evening. Brick foundation, fenced yard, small but solid. The kind of place begging for a second chance. I called the agent that night. A week later, it was mine. And that's when things got interesting. 2 weeks after closing, my mom called. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. She started with small talk, asked how I'd been, how Rusty was doing, the same dog they once called Dumpster Mutt, whether I was staying busy. Then came the real reason. "Our neighbor passed away," she said softly. "Family's selling the house. It's the one across the street. You probably saw the sign." I smiled to myself. "Yeah," I said. "I might have noticed." She hesitated. "Well, we were thinking about helping Haley and her boyfriend get started. Maybe set them up there for a while until they find their own place." I leaned back in my chair. "So you want me to help?" Another pause. "Well, you've got the tools. And the experience. If we cover the purchase, maybe you could, I don't know, oversee some renovations? Get a crew in there?" I let the silence hang. I took a slow breath and said, calm as ever, "You're too late." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" my mom asked. "I already bought it." Silence. Beautiful, satisfying silence. You bought the house across the street," she finally managed. "Yep. 2 weeks ago." Her voice wavered. "Oh, I see. I'm turning it into a rental," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Maybe a duplex. Haven't decided yet." She didn't answer right away. Then came her weak attempt at guilt. "You should have told us. Like you told me I'd never amount to anything." I replied, *click, *end of call. No goodbye, no congratulations. Just the sound of her hanging up, cutting off whatever fantasy she had of me remodeling the place for Haley and her boyfriend. I didn't get mad, not even a little. Instead, I stood in the middle of that dusty living room, grinned at the cracked ceiling, and whispered, "You're about to stir up so much family drama. I'm so proud of you." 2 weeks after I closed on the house, I started renovations. Quiet ones. No big trucks, no flashy signs, no noise for the neighbors to gossip about. Just me, my tools, and Rich, a contractor buddy who never asked questions, just showed up with a thermos and a nail gun. We kept things low-key because I knew exactly what would happen once my parents found out. And spoiler, they didn't hear it from me. They heard it from the HOA. Apparently, filing for a porch permit triggered an automatic neighborhood notice. And since my parents have always treated the phrase property value like gospel, they were the first to know. The next morning, I woke up to 4 missed calls. 2 from Mom, 1 from Haley, and 1 from a number labeled Dad New Cell. Not a single voicemail. Typical. I ignored them all and went back to work. Every day, Rich and I stripped down another room, swapped old copper for PX, insulated the walls, and fixed everything years of neglect had destroyed. And every day, I'd catch the curtains twitching across the street, Mom's silhouette, peeking, then vanishing. No one came over. No yelling. Just heavy, judgmental silence. Then, one rainy afternoon, something unexpected happened. I came home from the supply store and found a small box on my porch. Inside was a roll of painter's tape, a new brush, and a note in neat handwriting. Asterisk for touch-ups. Thought you might need these. Mom. Asterisk no apology. No explanation. Just tools. I stared at the box for a long time before setting it in the garage. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't use it either. A few days later, Haley posted a photo on Instagram. Her and her boyfriend standing in front of a for rent sign, both looking like someone canceled Christmas. No caption, just a sad emoji. And right there in the background, my house. Their dream home, now officially under my management. I didn't comment, but I screenshotted it. Because nothing beats poetic justice like your family accidentally posing in front of your property. 3 days later, the universe doubled down with a literal storm. Rain hammered the street, lightning cracked above, and I sat inside sipping hot tea while Rusty barked at the thunder. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Asterisk Luke. Flooding again. Toilet backed up. Think the sump pump failed. We need help. Urgent. Asterisk I set my mug down. This was it. The moment. I thought about ignoring it, letting them sweat, but curiosity won. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my tool bag, and walked across the street. The yard was already soggy, puddles forming around the porch steps. I knocked once and let myself in. They hadn't even locked the door. Mom appeared first, frazzled and barefoot, clutching a stack of soaked towels. "Luke, thank God," she said. "It's worse than last time." Dad came stumbling out behind her, socks squishing, flashlight in hand. "The basement's flooding too," he said. "I think it's the old pump." I raised a hand. I got it. No greetings, no small talk, just business. They followed me as I worked, quiet and wide-eyed, while I moved through the house with calm precision. The culprit was the same ancient pipe I'd warned them about months ago, now split clean near the base and backing sewage into the lower bathroom. I didn't say asterisk I told you so. Asterisk I just fixed it. They trailed me to the basement as I unclogged the drain line, rebooted the sump pump, and swapped the valve with a spare I had in the truck. When it was over, I wiped my hands and said, "You really should consider a full repipe. This patchwork isn't going to last forever." Dad nodded, exhausted. Mom hesitated, then whispered, "Would you ever consider coming back? For dinner, I mean." I looked at her, then at the damp carpet, then at my dry boots. "I'll think about it," I said. But I didn't. I didn't go to that dinner, not out of anger, but because I didn't want to sit at a table where I'd once been the punchline, pretending the food tasted like forgiveness. Instead, I took Rusty out to the lake. We sat on the dock, his head resting on my lap, while the sunset bled orange into blue. I sipped gas station coffee and watched the water do absolutely nothing. It was peaceful, quiet, mine. Everything I had, the truck, the house, the business, I'd built from the ground up. No handouts, no cheerleaders, no applause. Just long hours, busted knuckles, invoices, and a little dog hair in my thermos. The next morning, there was a knock on my door. Not a text, not a call, a real knock. I opened it to see Mom standing there, holding a Tupperware of baked ziti and a look caught between shame and hope. I didn't move. She didn't either. After a moment, she said, "Your father's trying to fix the guest shower again." I raised an eyebrow. "Brave." She smirked. "Foolish." Silence. Then she held out the container. "You're probably too busy to join us. But you always liked my ziti." I took it. Not because I was ready to forgive her, but because, honestly, I missed the ziti. She nodded once, turned, and walked away. No apology. No, we were wrong. But less pretending. That was new. Later that week, I headed upstate for a job and left Rich to finish the last phase. The duplex renovation was wrapping up, paint finished, fixtures in place, staging photos taken. By the time I got back from my upstate job, we already had 3 applicants lined up. The second couple that came through stood out right away. He was a freelance artist, she was in nursing school, and they'd just moved from another town. No attitude, no drama, just real people looking for a place to start their next chapter. They walked through the space, admired the new kitchen, and the girl smiled. "So, you're the property manager?" she asked. I couldn't help but grin. "Nope," I said. "I'm the plumber." She blinked, a little thrown off. "Oh, cool. You work for the owner?" I paused, watching the realization start to form. "No," I said. "I am the owner." Something changed in her expression right then. Respect, curiosity, maybe both. "You're not just the plumber, are you?" she said with a grin. I chuckled. "Guess not." They signed the lease that night. 2 days later, I was out walking Rusty when I passed my parents' house. The curtains were open. Inside, Dad was crouched in front of a toilet, wielding a plunger like it was a weapon, while Mom filmed him on her phone. For what? I'll never know. But they looked normal. Like 2 people finally realizing the world had kept turning, and the son they underestimated had quietly built a life across the street. A life they couldn't buy, guilt trip, or fix with a home-cooked roast. I didn't wave, just kept walking. And for once, they didn't call out. 3 weeks later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. Not a bill, not a flyer, an actual envelope. Heavy paper, embossed seal. From the Homeowners Association. I figured it was another complaint. Maybe Rich parked too close to the sidewalk again. But when I opened it, I laughed out loud. Turns out my parents had tried to contest something about my duplex conversion, a zoning appeal, probably some last-ditch effort to stir trouble. The letter said the complaint had been denied. Reason? The new owner, me, met every compliance standard. And, as the note politely added, had completed renovations to city code. Asterisk unlike the previous filing party. Asterisk at the bottom. The HOA chair had scribbled a little note in pen. Asterisk whoever did the plumbing, hire them again. Absolute pro work. Asterisk I snapped a picture of it and texted it to Mom. No caption. She didn't reply. That night, I got a message from Dad instead. Asterisk are downstairs toilets out again? Think you can take a look? Asterisk I stared at the screen for a long second, then typed. Asterisk sure. My hourly rate's $180 now. Up front. Asterisk no response. Didn't need one. I didn't hear from them for a while after that. But the universe wasn't done having its fun. A few months later, a real estate agent called about a property 3 blocks away. A corner lot, fully gutted, perfect for renovation. As we toured it, he mentioned casually, "Funny story. Sellers said they live across from one of your rentals. Rough year for them. Plumbing issues, debt, family stuff. Looking to downsize." I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "I think I know the house." He raised an eyebrow. "Interested?" "Very." And I bought it. Not out of spite, but because I knew the pattern. My parents used to say I'd never amount to anything. That I was just a dumb plumber with dirty boots and no ambition. Now, I own 3 homes in their neighborhood. And every time they flush a toilet, turn on the shower, or run the dishwasher, they're relying on the same kid they once mocked. Me. About a month later, Haley posted a family photo online. All of them crammed into my parents' smaller condo. No smiles. Just that forced holiday stiffness, a tree in the corner, dim lighting. The caption read, "Asterisk holidays are better when you're close." Asterisk I didn't comment. Just forked another bite of pumpkin pie, turned up the jazz on the radio, and glanced out my window at the house across the street, the one they used to dream about. It was quiet. Tenants happy. Pipes running smooth. And me? Still just the plumber. The one who fixed the mess and ended up owning the whole damn block.